Hari Om. Let's start with the prayer. Om Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanura Mardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Tvameva Mata cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Vidyadravidam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Gurudeva Deva. Hari Om. We are doing Panchadashi chapter 1 and we just completed the sloka 48 and says Maya Vidye Vihayaivam Maya Vidye Vihayaivam Upadi Parajivayoho Upadi Parajivayoho Akhandam Satchidanandam Akhandam Satchidanandam Parabrahmaiva Lakshyate Parabrahmaiva Lakshyate. So, together, Maya Vidye Vihayaivam Upadi Parajivayoho Akhandam Satchidanandam Parabrahmaiva Lakshyate. So, Maya, Avidya. So, there are two essentially the Upadis, and that differ from Paraha, Jivaha. The Para, Paramatma, and Jivatma only are different from the point of Upadi. Upadi is that we use to express ourselves or for transactions. So it becomes an Upadi. Upadi is a means of in which Upa means the means for which I can transact with. So it is only a Karanam, an instrument for me. So a simple example that is given is essentially as long as I am riding a bicycle, so bicycle is a Upadi to travel one place. Suppose there's a red light and I get down, and along with the pedestrians, I also now move along with the pedestrians. I'm a walker now, not a rider, and therefore I can detach myself from the cyclist to a walker. So therefore I can get detached. Therefore it becomes a Upadi. Cycle becomes an Upadi only for transactions to one place and place, but it's not my Visheshanam. It's not my quality or attribute of myself, it is only an Upadi. So that understanding of Upadi different from Visheshanam is only because I am identifying myself with the higher nature of reality. And therefore Parabrahman, the Brahman, pure Brahman, which is all-pervading Brahman, now reflected in the localized equipment, and that is called Avidya, and that is essentially a Jiva. Avidya means the ignorant, and he is ignorant of his real nature. And the one that is the impure Sattva, along with the associated with the Rajas and Tamas, is what is called the Avidya. And the same Brahman, but reflected in the Maya, which is now pure Sattva Guna, and that becomes the Ishvara. So Maya Upadi and Avidya Upadi. Those are the two Karanas, instruments through which the reflection is occurring. Reflection cannot but occur because this is the subtle elements, and the subtle elements in which they have a capacity to reflect. And pure Brahman has nothing to do with any of this, but in its presence the reflection is occurring. So Jiva is pure all-pervading consciousness, the OC, and that all-pervading as though, quote unquote, falls on the localized subtle body, Antakaranam, and get reflected because the Antakaranam has a capacity to reflect the light of consciousness, just as the moon has a capacity to reflect the sunlight. Same way, the Antakaranam has, or the subtle body has the capacity to reflect. The pure consciousness is always a pure, and it has nothing to do with any of this. But at the same time, reflection depends upon the reflecting medium, even though original light is the same. So there is no impurities in the original light, but depending on the reflecting medium, reflection occurs. If it is a bright mirror, polished mirror versus a dull or dirty mirror, the reflection will depend on the purity of the mirror, but even when the pure light is same, that is falling on both rivers. In the same way, different upadhis are different, and antahkaranas are different, the buddhi or various buddhis are there. Therefore, reflection of each individual jiva depends upon the purity of the buddhi. And if the buddhi is dull, the dullness of the buddhi comes from the rajoguna and tamoguna aspects of it. So I had to slowly polish off myself, or washing off the tamoguna first and the rajoguna, and the rajoguna polished out to get a pure sattva guna where the reflection can be bright, and that's exactly where the Ishvara is, pure sattva guna only. So the evolution of an individual is going from a tamoguna to rajoguna to sattva guna. Whereas the Ishvara is nothing but the reflection of the same Brahman on the Maya, which is pure Sattva Guna there. So here the differentiation is Maya Avidya Vihayeva. So I have rejected the upadhi and concentrating myself. I am not this, but I am pure consciousness, the original consciousness, and that which is pervading everywhere. This process of rejection has to be done again by the buddhi only. So tad vijnasasva, that you have to inquire. Therefore, it is cognitively I am rejecting. It's intellectually I am rejecting what I am not in the process of recognizing what I am. So in the recognition, it is called recognition, means I am cognizing it, but I am paying attention to the upadhi, but not that which illumines the upadhi. Just I gave you example of my hand. Say I am paying attention to the reflecting medium, which is the hand, but not that because of which the reflection occurs. The reflection occurs not only by the medium, but the light falling on it. Now, in the same way, I don't see any consciousness getting reflected in the gross matter, because it's a sthula sariram or the inert matter. The inert matter, I cannot see reflection only because the reflecting medium is not capable of reflecting the complete consciousness of it. So in the Sat Chidananda aspect of it, you have a Sat part, a Chit part, and Ananda part, and the reflecting medium, depending on the reflecting medium, these three aspects get reflected. In the case of the inert objects, the only Sat part is reflected, and therefore its only existence part is perceived, and we don't perceive the conscious part or Ananda part. In the case of the living beings, not only the existent part but also conscious part is getting reflected, because it has a subtle body besides the gross matter, and therefore the reflection, again now I see the Sat part and the Chit part, but Ananda part is not getting reflected until I purify the mind. When the mind becomes calm and quiet, then Ananda also gets reflected. The mind gets calm and quiet whenever I am enjoying or happy in the moments of self-satisfaction or desire-fulfilled happiness. In those, at least momentarily, my mind is calm and quiet, therefore reflection of Ananda occurs. So reflection of Ananda part only occurs when the buddhi is calm and quiet. But I can get the calm and quiet without going after fulfilling the objects. Say sotriyasya akamayatasya, in the hierarchy of the Ananda, the different degrees of Ananda, same Ananda one can get by sotriyasya akamayatasya, the one whose mind is calm and quiet, and who has done that by by the Shrotriya, the one who knows that that's because of the calmness and quietness that the Ananda can get. I don't have to depend on for my happiness something other than myself for my happiness. That becomes a knowledge. So when I withdraw that I am not this, I am not this, I am pure consciousness, the process of vihaya, that means essentially the rejecting what I am not and claiming what I am, occurs only by Vedanta, Shravana, Manana and Nidhyasana. And then Akhanda Satchidananda Parabrahma eva lakshate, that which is pointed out in the direction that I have to say, I am the original consciousness and I am not this reflected consciousness, that has to be recognized by the mind. Using the reflected consciousness, recognize that I am the original one. It is like asking the moon, he has a misunderstanding that I am self-luminous body in this world and I am different from other reflecting the Venus and other planets and other satellites and so on. So he has a wrong notion that the luminosity is my own nature. But Vedanta Shravana, the moon gets it. It says, the luminosity is is the nature of the inert body of the moon, but the luminosity is coming from the all-pervading sunlight that is illumined. So they are using essentially that moon body itself and recognize that luminosity is my own self coming from the sunlight only, or I am that sunlight that illumines not only this moon but all other things also. So you have to we showed what is Sakshi and what is all-pervading consciousness. In principle there is no difference, yet if you see, looking back my hand, the Sakshi part is that part of the light that is only falling on my hand is Sakshi. But looking at the hand, looking at the light, I have to recognize I am that light, not only illumining this hand, but all other hands, all other objects in the world. Sasya bhasa sarvavidam vibhati. By the illumination of this, everything else shines. That is being pointed out, and I am that Akhandam Satchidanandam. Akhandam, because there is no division in the Satchidananda, because it is infinite, because the scripture says the existence itself is infinite, which can be logically reduced, but also scripture says even the consciousness is infinite, because Prajnanam Brahma. And Anandam is limitless, alone is Anandam, Anantameva Anandam. Therefore, it is Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, same as Sat, Chit, Anandam. And that is being Parabrahma Eva. That is, I am that Supreme Brahman. Supreme means only because nothing other than there. Matta Parataram Nasti, Anya Dhananjaya. There is nothing beyond me, because if there is something beyond Brahman, then Brahman is no more Brahman. So Brahman means infiniteness, and there cannot be anything beyond infiniteness, and therefore it is Parabrahma Eva Lakshyate. It's being pointed out, because it's pointed out not to the Brahman, to the Jiva, who has a notion that I am this, and in the very equation of I am this, which is ego, there's a problem. I am a conscious entity and this is inert entity. I am not the inert entity, but I am the one who is pure consciousness, which enlivens even the inert entity also. Without my presence, the existence of inert entity cannot be established. I am the one which pervades the whole thing. So Mayatadamidam sarvam jagad avyakta murtina mastani sarva bhutani nachaham teshu avasthitha, says Krishna. That is Parabrahma, and that's being pointed out to a student through Tattvamasi Mahavakya by the teacher, and therefore teacher is teaching. They say look at that direction. It's not this is Brahman, but you have to lift your mind in the direction, using the mind, recognize that the consciousness that is enlivened in the mind is nothing but pure all-pervading consciousness, because the mind doesn't have consciousness of its own, but is being activated as though it is conscious entity because of the reflection process. All that is being analyzed so far, and with this the teaching of innocence is completed from the Mahavakya Vichara. That's whole Panchadashi, whole Vedanta is also up to this over. So this up to that is essentially the Srotavyaha. So this is what the teaching is. Then says this knowledge has to become doubt-free. The knowledge is doubt-free is because I know that I am that light of consciousness. But still doubts come into picture because of the analysis on logically it doesn't say I am infinite, experientially it doesn't feel infinite, Shastra is telling me infinite, I had to claim that infinity even though using a finite body in intellect. So a lot of theories are coming because of that reason only. Therefore, we have to have a firm conviction that I am that. So this is a beautiful story that mentioned perhaps by Gurudev in terms of the understanding as the fact. So in J. Krishnamurti says it's not an understanding as a thought, but it's an understanding as a fact. So this is essentially going from the Vedanta point from a Paroksha Jnanam to Aparoksha Jnanam. That means a Jnanam is, oh, I understand the Vedanta. Now I have to sit and meditate on it. It's not a sit and meditate, that means I have not understood properly. So this is a story of Mr. Jones and a rat. So somehow Mr. Jones thought, I am a rat. So says I am a rat. So since he is a rat, he has to protect himself from the cat. So wherever the cat comes, he is to hide himself so that the cat doesn't eat him away. And his wife saw this. Why is he hiding every time the cat comes? And says, why are you doing? Because I am a rat. So my God, this fellow has a real problem. She took him to psychologist, and psychologist explained, you are a man, rat looks like this, man doesn't look like that, you look like this, and you are a man and not a rat. So many sessions are over. Mr. Jones understood I am a man and not a rat. With that, after paying, of course, heavy dues to the psychologist and psychiatrist and so on, he went back home, and then to his surprise, he saw that ferocious looking cat was sitting there. After looking at it, he ran back to the doctor. Says, what's the problem? She said, I understand that I am a man and not a rat, but I am not sure if the cat understands that I am a man and not a rat. That means I have not understood, or Mr. Jones has really not understood that he is a man and not a rat. Same way, I understand Vedanta that I am a Brahman and not the Jiva. So someone went to Gurudev, says, sir, I understand I have been attending Vedanta classes, I understand that I am Brahman and I am not Jiva. How come I am still suffering? I said, Gurudev, if you are a Brahman, I also have a question, how are you suffering? Because if I am Brahman, there cannot be any suffering, because I am infinite and Anantam, Anantameva Anandam, I am pure Ananda Swarupam. And therefore, it is Parabrahmaiva Lakshyate, that understanding has to be internalized. That means the full understanding as a fact and not just as a thought. Even though thinking process is required for understanding, that the clear understanding, I had to claim that I am that. That is essentially called internalizing the knowledge. So there should be doubt free in order to claim that. If I still have a doubt, that means I have not understood. We said, if there is a electrical wire there and bare wire, and I was about to touch it, and suddenly somebody said, hey, there may be chance that there may be some power there. We are not sure. It may not be there, but there is a 0.0001%, there may be the powerful electricity may be going there. Would I dare to touch it? Says, I want to make sure it is perfectly clean and know it is completely inert. In the same way, I want to make sure that no doubts about that claiming. Even when anybody comes and with objections, I know that I am Brahman in spite of whatever they feel. Just as I know I am an existent entity, I am a conscious entity, even in the pitch dark room I know. I don't have to see myself to know that I exist, or I know that I am a conscious entity. Same way, I am Brahman. That means in spite of all troubles, all sufferings at the body, mind and intellect level, I am firm that I am Ananda Swarupa. They come and go. So Krishna says, Matra sparshostu kaunteya sitoshna sukadukkadaha agama paino nityaha tantishasva bharata. So they are agama paino nityaha. So they are essentially keep coming and going. That which comes and goes cannot be permanent, and therefore they do not belong to me. I am the one who is permanent, which is Sakshi. That has to be internalized. Therefore, mananam becomes important. So scripture says, Srotavyaha, Mantavyaha, Nididhyasitavyaha. Listen to the scriptures for how long? Until that how long question is not there, until I have clearly understood and reflect on the teaching, and the mananam comes into. So how do Vedanta approaches this mananam? It raises itself some of the objections to it, and to make sure that those kind of objections will not arise in your mind, it's crystal clear. So we have a Vedantic way of teaching is where the Purva Paksha, we give an importance to the objections, Purva that is given before, and Siddhanta, and then says what you say is not really right, and this is how one has to think, because a lot of confusion and the different interpretations of Vedanta is there. So one has to be very, very clear. It's only by the grace of God you are led to a proper teacher. Manushatvam, Mokshatvam, Mahapurusha Samsrayam. Associated with the right teacher. And the Avadhuta Gita says, the Ishwaranugrahateva Pumsam Advaita Vasana. Only by the grace of God you are led to a teacher who is an Advaitic teacher, where all these doubts are become crystal clearly is removed. Now here one common objection by here not a ignorant person, by a Nyaya philosopher who is based on a logic. So there are Nyaya, Vaiseshikas, both are called logicians or Tarkikas in general. There are Nyaya philosophy, Vaiseshika philosophy, and most of them they have common, and essentially they go by logic, and that logicians in general packaged together. The logicians in general are called Tarkikas, and this is an objection by a Tarkika, and he raises. Now we go into the manana aspect of it. So next three slokas are essentially emphasizing this aspect. The next two slokas is about the objection and how that is countered. So we'll read the sloka 49. Savikalpasya lakshyatve savikalpakshasya lakshyatve savikalpasya lakshyatve lakshasya asadavastuta lakshasya asadavastuta nirvikalpasya lakshyatvam na drushtam na cha sambhavi together. Savikalpasya lakshyatve lakshasya asadavastuta nirvikalpasya lakshyatvam na drushtam na cha sambhavi. So, savikalpasya lakshyatve. Sir, you are saying that this is, in the previous sloka, parabrahmaiva lakshyate, that's being pointed out as that is parabrahma. Now the question is, you are saying parabrahma as lakshanam. Lakshanam means he is Sachidanandam, Akhandam Sachidanandam. He is Akhandam, unbroken, and Sachidanam, it means he is infinite, pure Sat Chit Ananda. If this is the Lakshana you are talking about, and you are teaching me that, says there is a teacher and there is a taught, and this is about something that is being taught. So he is being pointed out about this. So says, how do teaching occurs? I say any physics or mathematics or any knowledge, and says this is a physics. So you go through some subject, you follow a book, and you go through a subject where there is a teacher, is essentially Acharya, and the student who is learning, and the teaching subject that is being taught. And the teacher is teaching a subject matter for transmitting that knowledge because it is well defined subject. Is it something like that? Because you are saying this is Lakshanam. So if Brahman, it can be taught like that, because teacher you are teaching, you are going to say for Tadvijnana Samtagurum Eva Vigachet Samit Panihi Sotriyam Brahmanishtam. You approach a teacher, that's what Vedanta also says. So you have to learn from a teacher. Shrotavya means listening to a teacher for a prolonged length of time, consistently, systematically, until it is crystal clear. So that's a knowledge. So if that is so, there is a teacher, taught and teaching. There is a knower, known and knowing. So there is a pramata, there is a prameyam, and there is a pramana, means of knowledge. These are called triputi. In every experience and every knowledge, in everything, there is a triputi. It says, I am a seer, and this is a seen, and there is a seeing, means of knowledge. And I am hearer, and this is heard, and there is a means connecting between me and the heard through a means of hearing. So all these things have triputi. Triputi means triad, where pramata is different from prameyam, and prameyam and pramata are different from pramana. Pramata is knower, prameyam is known, and pramana is means of connecting a knower and the known through a process of knowing process. Like listening, hearing, teaching, all the process involved is called a means of knowledge. So is that savikalpasya lakshatve? If you say this being taught by the teacher, because this is the teaching, and being taught by a teacher to the teacher, therefore there is always a triputi involved, and therefore this triad is involved, and in the triad itself one divides the other, one is different from the other, and the very differentiation, if very essence of differentiation makes it Lakshasvasat. So Lakshasya Sat Avastuta. If it is Brahman is being taught like that, is being pointed out, then that Brahman cannot be pure Brahman, or cannot be the reality, because it is avastuta. It is also falls under the category of anything like physics, chemistry, biology, zoology and all that, essentially avidya only, because it is being pointed out. So something that is being pointed out, something being taught is the goal. See, that is the Lakshyam, and being pointed out, and that Lakshyam is essentially any Lakshyam in the phenomenal world, because the teaching is only in the phenomenal world, and that becomes avastuta. Avastuta means here it's mithya. According to your Advaita philosophy, anything that is in this world, you call it is neither real nor unreal. So Sat Vilakshanam, Sat Asat Vilakshanam, different from the real and different from the unreal. So this is the doctrine of the Advaita Vedanta. Therefore it is neither real nor real any object. It is real enough for me to transact, or sometimes to get confused as it is real, but it is not really real, because it gets negated in the final analysis. So this Brahman also is nothing but is also mithya. So the whole teaching itself is really wrong, because if you can teach about Brahman, then that Brahman that you taught is really mithya only, not the absolute Brahman. So the whole Advaita falls down in the process. That's what he is trying to arrive at. So the first statement is savikalpasya lakshatve lakshasya sad avastuta. These type of arguments are based on Navya Nyaya. the new knowledge, new nyaya, new logic, and these are dialectic arguments, and you will find them many Dvaitins and Visishtadvaitins use a lot. And the Visishtadvaita by the Vedanta Deshika has what is written as essentially the Satadhushani, says 100 abuses against Advaita Vedanta, and all those arguments, that means 100 arguments he provides. It's not really 100, there are only 66 or so, but it's essentially, we call it Satadhushani. And in the Satadhushani, the arguments are mostly dialectic arguments using a Navya Nyaya. This Navya Nyaya is new logic, was developed somewhere in around the 11th century by Gamgeya, and that is being further by what's being expanded by several other the Nyaya philosophers, and the Annambata is presented in this introductory text of that is essentially what one can read, one can get on the online, and that is essentially Nyaya. And these dialectic arguments are presented here by the Navya Nyaya objection. So if you say that Brahman can be taught, can be pointed out, then it is a Lakshyam, and which is different from the Lakshanam and also the pointer, the teacher who is pointing also. That means it is limited, and any limited is essentially a Mithya only. So therefore, if you say that one can teach Brahman as you are doing it by your Tattvamasi statements and all that, then that Brahman that can be taught by this kind of things is only a Mithya only, not the real Brahman. Or if you claim that Nirvikalpasya Lakshatvam Nadrushtam Nacha Sambhavi, if you say that the Brahman is that which is Nirvikalpaha, Nirvikalpasya Lakshatvam, it doesn't have any vikalpa, that means it doesn't have any modifications for me to teach or can be expressed. It doesn't fall under this Triputi, it doesn't fall under being taught, it doesn't come under things that I can teach. Then in that case, Nirvikalpasya Lakshatvam Nadrushtam Nasambhavi, that cannot be seen or cannot be heard. Nadrushtam includes through any the 5 Jnanendriyas, it cannot be expressed or it cannot be possible also. Nacha Sambhavi means it's not possible. So essentially, he pulls down the whole Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta, by his argument that that Brahman that you teach cannot be possible, cannot be real. Therefore, your whole Advaita Vedanta cannot be taught if it is there, and that which cannot be taught is useless because that is not possible, because scripture is talking about and teaching also. So we cannot have that which is attributeless Brahman. In essence, Brahman cannot have any attributes. Satchidananda, Akanta Satchidananda cannot be attributes, and that which is attributeless Brahman cannot exist according to their arguments. Attributeless Brahman, because anything that has attribute has to be an object, and anything that has an object is part of the Vidya only, or part of the Maya only, or part of the Mithya only. So that which has attributes is the finite one. Same argument also uses by Ramanuja, because that this is Nirgunaha. Nirgunaha means attributeless. He says Nirgunaha is not attributeless because the Paramatma is Akanda Kalyana Gunashrayam. It's Ananta Kalyana Gunashrayam. And Ananta Kalyana means infinite auspicious qualities. Each auspicious quality itself is infinite, and there are infinite auspicious qualities, and he is the locus of that. Just because you don't know it doesn't mean that he is Nirguna. So according to him, he is the Ananta Kalyana Gunam, and that is essentially the Lord Vishnu. Therefore, he is praised in terms of all the prayers and all that due to that Lord Vishnu. So therefore, for them, Brahman is also an objectifiable entity with properties, and his properties Ananta Kalyana Gunam only. He does not have any the bad qualities, and therefore nirguna he defines as not having any bad qualities only. So the dosha guna rahitaha is nirgunaha. That's how Ramanuja interprets even Nirguna also, because of the axiomatic statement that Lord is there, He is Purushaha. That's what this says in that. This is Sahasra Sirsha Purushaha Sahasraksha Sahasrapat Sabhumim Vishwato Rutva Atyatishtat Dashangulam Purushaye Vedagam Sarvam Yad Bhutam Yascha Bhavyam. So the whole Purusha starts describing that Purusha. He is Anantam, he is always infinite, and is Ananda, is the Mangalanamcha Mangalam, is auspicious than auspicious, the most super auspicious, and that is essentially the nature of Brahman. And if you don't know how to describe it properly, and you are saying that it is indescribable, therefore it doesn't have any qualities and all that, that is only your misconceptions about the nature of Parabrahma. So for him, Parabrahma is like a Virat Swarupa described in the 11th chapter of Gita, and that in that he has all the jivas as a part of his as a body. Therefore, according to the Visishta Advaita, all jivas form essentially Mamayo Amso Jiva Lokai. See, this Jiva Loka Sanatanaha, they are only my Amsha, this is only part of me, and they are only, I am, the Jiva is tiny, teeny, Sukshmati Suksham. That means, according to that, even the needle, sharp needle, if you divide 1,000 parts, or the part of that is more closer to the size of each Jiva, and that part of the whole body, and therefore every cell in my body will be serving me as the total, and same way every Jiva is only part of the Virat Purusha and serving the total body of the Ishvara. That's called Sesha Seshi Bhava. He is the controller and I am being controlled, and that should be the nature of Jiva and Paramatma relationship, and that is what the understanding should be. And there the avidya is only ignorance of this, lack of this understanding is avidya, and knowledge is recognition that Paramatma is supreme, I am only dependent on him. That's what I am a dasoham. And only in Vidya, in the Avidya, in the Advaita Vedanta, he says, I am that Soham, and that knowledge of I am that knowledge comes only because of Advaitic knowledge, where Nirgunaha, Nirakaraha says is taken as it says he doesn't have any guna. Why he doesn't have guna? He is Anantatva. He is because of infinite. Only finite things have properties, and all gunas are sattva, rajo guna, prakriti sambandham, and he goes beyond that, and that is essentially Brahman. And that, according to the question here, is if you say that it doesn't have any vikalpas, nirvikalpasya, if it doesn't have any attributes, and if that is what you think you are trying to being pointed out, that is neither can be possible or not can be heard or taught or anything at all. And this is the objection by the Nayayikas. Now Vidyaranya answers is at two levels. First, he addresses the Nayayikas and shuts him off, and then he addresses the students who are still eager to know what exactly or how do we answer that question. He also answers that question. That we will take up after we come back in the next class. So the sloka 50 on, where 50 and 51 is a response to the Nayayikas or Nyaya Vaiseshikas or Tarkikas, logicians, using their language for them to shut down. Essentially, they use a logic to shut up the logic, and that is essentially called Vrushtira Lakutika Nyaya. Vrushtira Lakutika Nyayam is a teaching where you have to use that part of it in order to make sure they understand it. It's like camel is, you know, they're going in the forest, there's nothing there, so he's carrying the big luggage, and if the camel starts misbehaving, so what do? Use the bag, has a stick there, so use the very stick that it's carrying to beat the camel to make sure that it is behaved. So use the same logic that he is using to make sure that the logicians will not address that kind of questions, and that's called, that kind of nyaya is being used. So here Vidyaranya says, don't think that I don't know the logic, I am going to use your own logic to show what the problems of your logic itself, of your attributes and the qualities. This will take up, this is because of the tenacity of the subject itself. It's a little bit hair-splitting logic he is going to use, and nothing, you won't get much knowledge, but it's interesting to see how Vidyaranya addresses that. We will take up that in the next talk. With this we stop here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.